Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Wealth After Work, the show that brings you to and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio are two members from Abundant Streams Capital Group. We have Josiah Grauso. He is the Vice President and Senior Financial Advisor, and Senior Financial Advisor Taylor Munoz. We've got a great show for you today. We are going to start off today's conversation by talking about how it is not your parents' or your grandparents' retirement anymore. The reality is today's modern retiree is facing so many more challenges, and we want to help you navigate through those successfully. We know that a lot of folks are wishing they could rewind time to a more simpler time for their retirement. Is that possible for you? We're going to tackle that today. But first up, Josiah, Taylor, so good to be here with both of you. How are you this week?
Doing well.
Yeah,
always great to be with you.
Well,
absolutely. This is one of my favorite days of the week, being able to sit here with the two of you. That's why my smile is always so big. It's enjoyable.
I look forward to it as well. And, you know, this topic is really fascinating because it's something that you are seeing day in and day out with the folks that you meet with. We know that there's a lot of concerns out there. There's a lot more challenges that folks are facing as they want to navigate through retirement successfully. I'm curious, Taylor, I'll start with you. Yeah. What is at the top of your list when you think about what has changed for retirees today?
Sure. I mean, I think at a broad level, folks are living longer than they ever have and having a longer time in retirement than they ever have, you know, almost as long in retirement as they maybe even worked during their active career. You know, the Social Security Administration puts out facts every year about how many people are age 65 and over. Right now, that number's around 62 million. And in just about 10 years, it's projected to be 77 million. So more and more people living longer and longer into retirement, needing their retirement assets to last. Now, our parents and grandparents' generations, you know, 30, 40, 50 years ago plus, it was common to retire into a pension and Social Security. And between those two streams of income, it covered the majority of many folks' needs. But then there was a pivot. Really, it began in the late 70s. There was a passage of an act called the Revenue Act of 1978. And that act is really, it wasn't even designed necessarily to make a fundamental change. It was more of like a footnote, but buried in the bill in section 401k, which I'm sure many of our viewers are very familiar with the term 401k, but it referenced this bill. That's what allowed folks to begin setting aside some of their compensation into tax-deferred accounts. And then it was very shortly after that there was a gentleman who was referred to as like the godfather of the 401k, said, hey, we can use that provision to basically begin replacing employer-sponsored pensions. And so it was at that point that we went from the employers bearing much of the risk and responsibility for providing income to folks in retirement, and it shifted to these defined contribution plans where folks were now responsible for setting aside their own monies to fund their own nest egg. And then when they retired, now we have folks retiring with piles of money, piles of statements or assets, and it didn't come with an instruction book. And so we say in the absence of a pension, you are your own pension.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And you have to figure out, how do we make this money last? How do we pay ourselves a predictable paycheck all throughout our retirement years? So, you know, really that's the big difference that we have. And that's what we have to work with folks every day in doing, is how do we take what we've accumulated, that pile of money, and how do we now develop an income stream that we can depend on and that carries us through a 20, 25, 30 year plus retirement.
Yes, and it's so frustrating that there were no instruction manuals, to your point, of how to even handle and manage and invest that money when you were working, but then even worse, not having an instruction manual on how to take that and turn it into a reliable, ongoing, steady stream of income that you can't outlive. It's no wonder that the number one fear of most retirees is running out of money. But this is where you guys come in. This is what you specialize in doing for folks. I'm curious, Josiah, from your perspective, what else is at the top of this list of what makes retirement today so different?
Yeah, Taylor kind of alluded to in the very beginning here, it's longevity. We're living longer and longer than our parents and our grandparents did.
Yes.
You know, they would maybe work until they were like 62 or 65. And then unfortunately, they maybe passed away only a couple of short years after retirement. Today, we're seeing people go 20, 30, 40 years in retirement.
And just as long as they were working, right?
Exactly, almost as long as they were in their working years. So this vital shift is so important that we have here, because really the goal of our parents and grandparents was to get to retirement. The goal now is not only to get to, but through our retirement years.
Yes.
And so what that really means, Kristen, is our dollars have to work harder. They've got to last longer. And here's the thing, we've got some people that were still kind of set in this mindset of accumulation. They just need to grow their money. They know at no stopping. And that's okay while we're working. But when we're in retirement, we really have that vital shift that really needs to happen, that pivoting that needs to go from accumulation to now preservation and distribution. And you know, their thoughts and their feelings on this is not wrong. Why? Because in reality, Wall Street has pumped billions of dollars of advertising, talking about the way you win is to grow your money at all cases.
Right. What's your number, right?
What is your number?
Focus on that. Yeah.
Absolutely. You've got to win through market gains. But in retirement, the key is really not winning at market gains. It's avoiding major market losses, because major market losses could completely derail our retirement picture. So the question really comes is, do we have the same tools available to us now so that we could have a retirement like our parents and grandparents? And the short answer to that is yes. But here's the thing. We've got to work a little bit differently. We have to strategize a little bit differently. It's more about maximizing income, reducing risk, and maybe even implementing some guarantees where they are appropriate. And the reason we do that, so we don't have to live and die by the stock market either going up or going down. That can really affect us.
Yep.
And so if you're sitting at home and you're wondering, can I have the certainty, the predictability, the simplicity of how my parents and grandparents' retirement was? I want to let you know the first steps that we want to take is creating a retirement income analysis. And that's something that we provide for you at no cost and complimentary. I'm going to encourage you to pick up the phone, give us a call at that number below, and we're going to provide you this retirement income analysis. And it's going to really focus on 4 key areas. The first is tax diversification, wanting to make sure we're minimizing how much we're paying in taxes on our withdrawals. But the second area it's going to focus on is fees. Are we paying unnecessary fees that can erode some of our capital and principal? Our third is, what risks are we taking? And are we taking those risks unnecessarily? But the most important thing that this report is going to show us is how much income is being produced in your current portfolio, the steady and predictable income, and what could it look like if we focused on maximizing that income. So if that's you out there and you would like to get this free complimentary retirement income analysis, I'm going to encourage you to pick up the phone, give us a call at that number below, and we would love to sit down and go over this report with you today.
Wonderful. Josiah Taylor, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, that number to call is there for you on the bottom of your screen, 844-918-4867. Or if you'd rather schedule that complimentary retirement income analysis online, we invite you to take out your smartphone. You can simply scan that QR code in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and that will get you connected as well. When we come back, what about inflation? How can you ensure that you have an income plan that will keep up with the pace of inflation in your retirement? We'll cover that when we come back.
My passion stems from my parents. So when my dad retired in the early 90s, he didn't have a lot of money accumulated, but he had a house. My dad was conservative. He never was a risk taker. So he placed his money in the bank, in CDs, and he lived off the interest along with a small pension and his Social Security and my mom's Social Security. And I went and visited them back in '99. And when the CDs began to mature, we realized that the renewal rates were much lower. I said, okay, let me take a look at your accounts. What I found was my dad at the time was 72. He had the portfolio of a 41-year-old. You know, very high risk, aggressive growth. And so I did a retirement income analysis, and we put them into a plan that gave them a predictable, guaranteed income every month. My dad lived to 92, my mom lived to 89, and they had a really, really stress-free retirement because of that guaranteed income. And so I'm passionate that I want to do that same job, that same strategy for the clients that I work with today.
Welcome back to Wealth After Work. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Josiah and Taylor from Abundant Streams Capital, and we are so glad that you're joining us today. If you're just tuning in, we are talking about the fact that for today's modern retiree, it is not the same experience that your parents or grandparents have experienced. You have to be prepared to navigate through these challenges, and thankfully, there are tools available to help you do so. And this is something that you guys and the team of ASC specialize in doing for folks. I know that one of the challenges that's at the top of most folks' minds is inflation, and rightly so. It's been all over the place over the last several years, right? And what's interesting about inflation is it's often said that it is not an equal opportunity offender. Can you explain what that means and why folks need to pay attention to that reality?
Yeah, Kristen, so inflation does not hit everybody evenly. Okay, so the government uses something to measure inflation known as the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. And they're going to say, you know, maybe inflation this year is up 3 or 4% or so. But the key is here, one of the things is that that doesn't affect retirees the same way. Why? Because they're not really spending on averages. The things is what they care about most, things like traveling, hotels, eating out, spending money on flights and things like that.
Right.
Those, and actually one of the biggest ones is healthcare. Those often rise faster than the normal CPI index. On the same hand, though, everyday essentials that they're spending, things like their gas, their utility, their housing expenses, energy, that's still climbing too. And so retirees are really getting hit on both ends, not only on their essentials, but also on their dreams and what they plan for their retirement years. And here's the key difference in this area. While I'm working, I can try to combat a little bit of inflation by doing a couple things. Maybe it's by raises I'm getting through my workplace, or it could even be things of working some overtime hours, maybe getting a second job. I don't really want to do that though, Taylor, so don't have any thoughts. Or even like at times here, we could even switch career moves, okay? But oftentimes retirees, they're set to a fixed budget that they have, a fixed income that they have. And that's why inflation directly can erode their purchasing power. And that kind of really creates this perfect storm that retirees that face, and it really punishes them more than anybody else. You know, the danger is that sometimes they're forced to have to scale back or completely abandon what their dreams were in retirement. And that's why it is so important that we really start focusing on consistent, renewable streams of income that not only combat these rising inflation rates, but really helps emphasize that our dollar is able to stretch further and further in our retirement years.
Yes, and not just streams, we want abundant streams of income, right?
That's kind of right for the name of the company.
I know, right? So genius. But what's interesting is I find that a lot of financial advisors out there, a lot of folks working with a financial advisor, they're not having this kind of conversation about inflation, yet you can't have a solid income plan in place for your retirement without addressing it. So how do you guys go about making sure that inflation is built in to the retirement incomes that you built for folks?
Yeah, well, it starts by developing an actual income strategy. right? Without the strategy, we either may overspend or underspend in retirement. Overspend and risk depleting your assets too early, or underspend and not enjoy the retirement that you thought that you were going to have. It's important to certainly have some growth still within someone's portfolio to help keep up with inflation. But what we often find is that, unsurprisingly, the majority of folks that are leaving the workforce and entering retirement are still positioned so heavily for growth that inflation is still a risk, because what happens if in a given year the market drops 10 to 20% and inflation cut your purchasing power by another 3%, and you're not getting enough renewable income streams coming from your assets? You're pulling out money. So market drops 10 to 20%. Inflation adds 3%, and maybe you were pulling out, relying on a withdrawal strategy, and you pull out another 4%. That has a significant compounding effect on drawing down someone's life savings.
Yeah, so depleting it.
Right? And, so that's where we focus very heavily on what we call the world of the I, all things income. It's high interest, high dividends. There's lots of things that fall into that category of assets, but what we often find is, people that are retiring, we use the word growth a lot, right? Oh, I want growth in my portfolio. Well, what we typically find is really people want a return, right? I want a return that meets my needs. And so we have to start making that pivot towards seeing, well, that return can come from two places. It can come from growth, but that's market volatility too.
Right.
And we don't want to rely on market volatility to fund our necessities in retirement. It also comes from interest and dividends, or the income piece of our portfolio. So that's where we have to start taking an income first approach and not getting rid of growth completely, but not relying on it solely, right? And so that we don't get into that position where, inflation and market loss and things are compounding our losses and forcing us to, withdraw principal prematurely.
Right.
As we are trying to make these assets last. So, we also, we call it one of my favorite analogies is that of a rental house.
A rental house, okay.
Yeah. So if I own a property and I enter retirement and I want to make money from that property, there's two ways I can make money from the property. I can sell the property, right? Or I can rent that property. And if I sell it, is it fair to say that I'm going to be very beholden to whatever the market is dictating, right? The housing market.
The market value.
Maybe it's hot nearby, but it's not hot where I am. Or maybe the market was hot, but it's still a 6% or more for a new home buyer to get a mortgage, right? So they don't want to buy the house. So I could get more than I want or less than I want for my house. But if I own the house and I rent it, not that I don't care at all, but if the value of the house goes up a little bit or down a little bit, am I as concerned if I'm still getting that consistent rental income coming from the house, right? So if we look at the house as our portfolio, and our portfolio is positioned for high interest and dividends, that's like rental income coming off of our portfolio that we can rely on even when the market's going up and down. So that's the process that we begin walking folks through, is how to begin focusing first on income and not relying overly on growth. And to the jeopardy of our assets that we've saved for retirement. So if that's, if you're at home and you're wondering, how is inflation potentially going to impact my retirement? We've also read, a bit about how if inflation is 3% a year, that means that over a 24-year period of time, your cost of living expenses can double. Right? So if you're concerned about inflation, you're concerned about its impact on reducing your buying power as you head into retirement or further into retirement, we'd encourage you to pick up the phone and give us a call. We want to do our retirement income analysis for you. It's a complimentary process, and we're going to really assess how you're positioned and seeing if you're getting enough of a predictable return for your assets, or are you over-reliant on growth and taking unnecessary risk. So we encourage you to give us a call at the number on the screen or scan the QR code below.
Wonderful. Taylor, Josiah, thank you so much. That number to call is 844-918-4867. Or again, just grab your smartphone, scan that QR code. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from ASC will reach out to connect with you to schedule that complimentary retirement income analysis that way as well. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, how do you know if you're retirement ready? We're going to give you some things to think about to help you assess your retirement readiness right after this.
The right Social Security filing strategy can significantly impact your retirement income. The difference between different claiming strategies can have long-term financial implications. Your decision should be based on your personal financial situation, longevity, expectations, and income needs, rather than just delaying your benefits. The Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015 made significant changes to Social Security filing rules, including the elimination of strategies like file and suspend. Many retirees may not be fully aware of how these changes could affect their benefits. If you haven't reviewed your Social Security strategy recently, now may be a good time to do so. A customized Social Security analysis can help you understand how to optimize your benefits based on your individual circumstances.
Welcome back to Wealth After Work, where today we've been doing a deep dive into a lot of the challenges that today's modern retiree is facing. We want to help you be prepared to navigate through those challenges successfully. And before the break, we teased this concept of retirement readiness. And I know this is a huge thing of what you all do for folks. I'm sure a lot of people watching are having that same question of, can I go ahead and retire? Meaning, do I have enough money saved? Am I going to be okay? So how do you help people evaluate their state of retirement readiness?
Yeah, I mean, at a core level for us, it's our retirement income analysis. And I know we talk about it all the time. And if someone's a regular watcher, they're probably like, oh, they're talking about that income analysis again. But it is really such a powerful tool to establish a benchmark of where someone is. So we establish, where are you at today? Where do you want to be? And how do we take some steps to get to close that gap, to get to where we want to be? And usually that analysis comes back in one of three ways. First way, everything's perfect. No need to change anything. You are on the right trajectory. Full disclosure, I've never seen anybody in that category. The middle category, where I think a lot of folks fall in, is there's room to optimize in one area or the other, or maybe a little bit of both. There's maybe room to improve the protection of your money, to get better in terms of mitigating that risk, or getting more income, or a little bit of both. Third category would be, there's something kind of major going on and something fundamental that you really need to change right away. But that is such a helpful process for folks. And again, as we talk about, we look at, are you maximizing income, using the assets that you already have? How do you lock in those gains and create an income machine? Are you minimizing risk? How exposed are you when the next downturn happens in the market? What kind of fees are you paying, right? Making sure that you're not paying unnecessary fees that are also eroding the balances in your accounts. And what are the tax implications of my money, right? If we have a government that's over close to $37 trillion in debt, does that mean that there's a high likelihood taxes may go up in the future? There certainly is. And if we believe that that's going to be the case, or could be the case, how exposed are we when that happens, and how will that impact us as we're now paying ourselves a paycheck in retirement? So, we go through that analysis, and really, we really have to help folks make that transition into preserving their money and protecting it and getting a maximum income. We find probably too often that folks have this FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. And they go, yeah, Taylor, what you've said, it makes so much sense, but I think, or I believe, the market's going to continue to go up, so I'll do that in a little bit. And we've had a lot of folks that have said that and then come back to us later after they lost 10, 15, 20% in a big downturn. Now they just have less assets to put to work for them, but they didn't make that change when they needed to. And certainly that's concerning for us to see that happen, but ultimately, you, the viewer, or anyone that comes in to see us, has to make that decision to begin that transition and acknowledge that what worked for me to get to retirement is not the same thing that I need to get through it.
Yeah. When a lot of what you do for folks too is coaching them through not just the financial piece of this, but the psychological and the emotional transition, because it's huge. It's hard to go from what you've done up to your life to that point to then switching gears, right? Well, for someone who's watching and asking themselves this question of, am I ready? Can I go ahead and retire? What are some things or questions that you would invite them to start thinking through to help them address their retirement readiness?
Yeah, so the first step is really budgeting our money. How much income do I need for my necessities? Okay. But not just those essentials. Okay. We love doing this part of it, which is, what does your ideal retirement look like? What are those dreams that you have? Okay. We want to make sure we're budgeting for that as well. And then we want to take a look at maybe how we're taking our money out. Are they being as tax efficient as possible? Or are we spending a little bit more on unnecessary taxes? Have we made that important shift from accumulation to preservation and distribution? And have we changed that pile of money, turning that into a predictable, reliable, steady stream of income? And talking about that, are we producing enough income? If right now we're saying, like, to make our essentials here, I'm only producing 2% on interest and dividends, am I going to have to sell principal in order to get that goal that we have? As opposed to, I needed to take out 5% and now I've got a shortfall or a gap here. And here's the thing. This is something that we do each and every day when we sit down with someone. We kind of help them walk through this process with them. I have this client in Diane in East Stroudsburg. She's from PennDOT. I sat down with her. She was getting ready for retirement, and she talked about how her essentials were about $5,000 a month, $60,000 a year. And then we talked about what were some of the goals she wanted. And those goals that she really wanted to do was to be able to travel a little bit, go to Iceland, but she also was really big into the music scene. She wanted to go to Portland, Oregon. She wanted to go to New Orleans. So we were able to build that plan for them. And so folks, here's what I want to say. You're sitting at home. You want to make sure you have this predictable, reliable stream of income. We want to make sure we have that ability for us, that everything you want to be able to have in your retirement can be there through a process. And I'm going to encourage you to pick up the phone, give us a call at the number below. Let us prepare that retirement income analysis and walk through that process with each and every one of you. We look forward to talking to you soon.
Wonderful, Josiah Taylor. Thank you so much. Be blessed, live abundantly, and we look forward to being back with you next time here on Wealth After Work.